Hello and welcome to Ad Hoc Politics. My name is Asher, and I wanted to jump on here and give an update on the crisis in the Middle East, the war between Iran and the United States of America. All right, so last episode we talked about the ceasefire that had just went into effect, and we examined the demands that Iran was issuing. There was a conference in Islamabad to discuss and negotiate a potential maybe armistice or long term solution to this conflict. Now, after examining some of the demands that Iran was making, it was very clear that the United States could not accept these demands. It would amount to just a pure capitulation when strategically they were in an unfavorable situation, but they were not defeated militarily or tactically in any sense, and have many, many more cards to play and many, many more resources to draw upon if they so decide to do. So capitulating at that stage was just not realistic for Iran to think that they were actually going to do that. Um, I'm not sure what demands the United States made, but obviously the Iranians did not agree to any of them. So we're left with collapsed negotiations, a collapsed talks, but the ceasefire is maintaining. And the big development is that the United States has decided to essentially blockade Iran. And this is an interesting move. This is an actual strategy here. The initial strategy or plan of just killing Khomeini, bombing a bunch of shit, and just hoping the regime's going to come begging for peace and just collapse. That was a bad plan. That was not realistic. That was never going to happen. Didn't happen. This is a plan. Whether it's going to work or not, or if you have the stomach to maintain it in the long run, that's another story. But this would launch this conflict into an attritional kind of standoff at this stage, where Iran's major strategic victory was being able to shut down the Persian Gulf and strand, roughly 20% of the world's oil in the Persian Gulf and put a big hurt on the entire global economy, but in particular those Gulf monarchies that are their enemies. So the U.S. counter-blockading, this would not open the straits, but it would make them feel the pain of them being shut. In the previous kind of iteration where Iran was blockading, they could allow their friendly ships through, and they were coming up with the plan to tax or toll, ships passing through and extract wealth from the situation. So with the U.S. doing the counter blockade, they would no longer be able to extract wealth and benefit from the situation. They'd be in the same boat that everyone else is in, essentially. And so, yeah, it sets up kind of an attritional standoff here. Now, how long can the US and their allies maintain this? I don't know. How long can the global economy stomach the loss of that much oil from its markets? I don't know. It's going to be tough. It probably depends on different countries, where they're getting the oil, their reserves. There's a lot of different factors. And the cost of operating the economy at a higher energy price. So I'm not sure all the calculus that goes into that. There's obviously tons and tons of factors, but the other big factor would be that if the hot stage of the war does return, will the United States be able to maintain this blockade under fire? Because if there's one thing we have learned from the conflict in Ukraine is that surface navies at this stage in history, at the current moment, are very vulnerable. And I think we saw the Muscovy sunk in the Black Sea there by an anti-ship ballistic missile. So that technology has come a long way, as well as the advent of these cheap drone boats, like kind of speed boats with a bunch of fucking explosives on it. It's actually not a new idea. Like, I know the British used fire boats against the Spanish Armada. It's just kind of a modern take on a very old kind of swarm tactic that has worked very well in the past. So would the United States Navy be able to protect its ships and maintain the blockade? I don't know. I'm guessing that there would be losses. Maintaining a blockade over a seaway the size of, the Straits of Hormuz, or access to the Persian Gulf, it's going to take a lot of ships, and you're so close to an enemy country that has this very powerful missile capability and drone capability. I imagine there will be losses. Now, how many losses can the U.S. stomach? It's really kind of more a matter of willpower. On paper, you could stomach a lot of losses, but do you have the stomach for it? Can do you have the political willpower to maintain that? I don't know. That'll be an interesting uh, situation to keep an eye on. Now, will hostilities resume? Almost certainly, yes. It's extremely unlikely that this ceasefire is going to last. I don't think there's any more plans for talks or negotiations, anything like that planned. So it's really just we'll see how long this lasts. I'm sure both sides are rearming, reloading. Um, I can't imagine it'll last forever, though. So that's the situation we're in. And I'd also want to mention just kind of my feelings on this. This is a very dangerous situation that's developing here. The origins of this war are going to be very difficult to address. Much like the war in Ukraine, resolving this is going to be very difficult. And that just means that the risks of escalation and contamination, contagion, the risk of this thing spreading is real. It is real. And, big conflicts have started out of things like this, blockades and such. So this is an extremely dangerous situation. And how do we get out of it? It's just there's no easy off ramp. There's no real easy solution. There's no low hanging fruit here. I think ultimately what's at stake here is Iran is going to have to give up its weapons or potential weapons grade material and agree to not become a nuclear power. Now, they've always claimed that they were enriching uranium for peaceful civilian purposes, but that just was complete nonsense because if they actually wanted that, you could go through the same avenues that dozens and dozens of other countries go through the IAEA, where you're not enriching your own uranium. You're essentially buying it, and there's inspectors and stuff that are making sure that proliferation's not happening. Now they didn't want to do that. They wanted to be self-sufficient and enrich all this uranium, I think to like 6%, which is well past civilian um, percentages, and then just kind of sit on this stockpile of not necessarily weapons grade material, but material that could easily be further refined into weapons grade material, and kind of like live in this gray zone where, yeah, we don't have nuclear weapons, but we could easily make one if we wanted to. And so I think they'll have to give up on that if they really want this thing to end. Otherwise, I don't see the United States backing off here. And that really risks this thing turning into a much, much larger conflict. The United States, for their part, I think they're going to have to accept that Iran's going to be a major player in the region and that they're going to have a large, powerful ballistic missile capability. And economically, they're going to have a say in the Persian Gulf now. They've made it very clear that they are located in an incredibly strategic stretch of land there, and that they're going to be a major player in global shipping moving forward. Now, there is, I think, at least I see room to negotiate there. Iran can get sanctions relief. They've always claimed that they were doing this for civilian purposes, so you can have, we'll give up the weapons grade stuff and then, have the Russians come in and build a bunch of power plants to administer them. So I think they could save face in that way. The United States could obviously get a victory if Iran would give up their stockpiles and agree to no longer be enriching their own uranium. That's really the only way I see to get out of this, is that situation there. Iran could get sanctions relief, um, maybe some sort of long-term truce, and acknowledgement of their influence on the region, and they allow them to continue stockpiling these missiles. That's the only way I see out of this. Now, is that likely to happen? Doesn't seem like it at the moment. Both sides basically are demanding the other side surrender. Iran's 10-point plan was a demand for capitulation. The United States have been demanding that they capitulate since the very beginning. So neither side's ready to give this up yet. The war will resume. It's almost guaranteed at this point. How long the ceasefire lasts, I don't know. And will the United States be able to maintain the blockade under fire? I suppose you could bring in the submarine fleet and start attacking ships that you think are linked with Iran, but that'd obviously be a very unfriendly action and lead to all kinds of unintended consequences and ugly events and all that. But anyways, that's where we're at now. This has been a fascinating conflict to kind of observe, and we hope for the best, but I don't see any clear skies ahead. I see a lot of stormy weather in the horizon here. But that's all I had for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.